and welcome to episode 2 of the Eternal Insiders podcast. With me, as always, I'm going to try and point the right way this time. Here is Cam. Is that pointing at everyone, or is that pointing the wrong way? Cam is my co-promoter, and here is the Eternal MMA Featherweight champion, Jack Jenkins. Welcome, Jack.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, Jack.
I guess we'll fire straight into it. It's been a sort of long and winding road to try and finally get you on Eternal. And we march you straight in there with the title shot under sort of slightly tricky circumstances. But do you want to talk to us a little bit about the roller coaster that it's been to try and get you finally into the Eternal cage?
Yeah, right. So when was our first chat, Ben? That was probably 2017 or 2018, maybe a few years ago, about getting on a show. And we sort of spoke, and that one didn't work out, but we never agreed to anything or anything like that. But last year we had agreed to a fight with Nico, was it?
Yeah.
Was that the first one that we proper agreed to?
Yeah.
Yeah, we agreed to a fight with Nico, and then there was a bit of drama. I was contracted to Hex, and originally I'd been told that it was okay, and then told it wasn't okay. So there was a bit of drama, and I had to pull out from that one and have a fight on Hex. Then after that, our next one was. Did we organise another one in between that and the Ryan and Diego falling through?
Yeah, there was a New Zealand fight.
The New Zealand fight, that's right. I was supposed to fight Shem Murdoch in New Zealand, or maybe James Bishop, but I think James was unavailable at the start, and then Shem took the fight but got injured. And everyone knows Shem; he's tough as they come. So he must have been pretty injured to not show up to that fight. And then that one fell through. I had a teammate who ended up fighting on that card anyway, Ricky Beechin, who ended up as their Eternal Heavyweight champion, which was awesome. So it wasn't all doom and gloom for the New Zealand card. And then just before that card went ahead, you guys had the trouble with Ryan, obviously being injured and that sort of thing. And there was talk about me jumping in and fighting Diego in Perth, but that ended up falling through. That would have been short notice. That would have been probably 2 weeks, would it have been?
Yeah, not much.
About 2 weeks turnaround, that would have been if that one went through, but it didn't. And then I was pretty lucky, and I was grateful for you boys. You ended up moving that fight to the Gold Coast, which gave me an extra couple of weeks to prepare, and ended up being in Diego's home state. So it worked out to just put that on and make it the third title fight for Eternal 52. And I was happy enough to take it. I'd been training flat out since the end of December, so it was no worry about being fit or being on weight or anything like that. It's just a matter of getting the right fight and going for it. So, and I like, title fight or not, I liked the fight for me against Diego, so it made sense.
Yeah, look, that's yet again it highlights the beauty of us having so many events and quite close together. If fights fall out, we don't have to always disappoint the guy who's lost his fight.
Yeah, 100%.
Like in this case, Diego would have been disappointed and would probably have been on the shelf indefinitely, considering what happened with COVID, etc. But the fact that we could get you involved a week later, 7 days after that, it gave you the extra week to get prepared for it, and got the featherweight title still moving. It was fantastic. So yeah. And look, I think everybody, that fight was an absolute belter of a fight. I think everybody
it was great.
Watched that fight, enjoyed it.
Yeah, and also you see so often these days with promotions Australia wide, either dropping fights out and leaving. The biggest thing for me is I get really upset about. And I know it's part of the job, but I get really upset about leaving fighters on the shelf, like especially fighters that I've contracted to do certain things. Because as a coach, and I understand the disappointment and the effort that goes into it from a fighter's side. So I feel like we try extra hard to make sure that we get everyone the fights that we've promised them, be it on the event that we promised them or we'll move it. We have 10 events a year, so we can always... And I think that's the bonus of having as many shows as we have. We can service our fighters better, and it's really important for you guys to get the reward. And also, and this segue's gone quite nicely onto another point, is you guys, this is your living. Like for you, this is how you make money. And this is how you survive. So that's one responsibility of us as promoters, to make sure that you guys have the ability to do that. But another question I'd have was, with this whole situation, like the coronavirus and, you know, shutting down gyms and whatnot, how have you managed to, one, keep training, and two, keep liquid and have some food on the table through this tricky period?
Well, I was really lucky. So right before, right at the end of last year, I ended up coming home, and because I'd moved to Absolute, it made sense to me. The drive to Absolute for me is about 2 hours each way to get to training. So I leave here, which is my mum and dad's house, in the morning of a Monday, drive to Absolute, and then I sleep there 3 or 4 nights on the floor at the gym. And then I come home for the weekend, or, usually one night during the week as well. Just because it makes sense getting up early for training, staying late for training, and going directly from training to car, sitting all cramped up in your car, rolling out, you get sore, and it's just not good. So I'm pretty lucky that I get to stay at the gym on the floor, and we've got a mattress and a TV and stuff set up there, so it's pretty cruisy actually. It's not as bougie as some people get to stay in, but it's definitely not a nasty place to stay. It's actually set up pretty nice, so it's good. I do that, but with that, when the gym shut, it was like, right, so I've just come home and I'm staying with mum and dad full time. So I'm just trying to stay out of their hair and help out wherever I can around the house, because there's just not really much to do, is there? Especially like I'm running some online Zoom classes, probably doing like 5 or 6 of those a week, for my home gym, Metamorphic, and for Absolute as well. But apart from that, I'm just staying fit by doing a lot of running. So I'm running probably 50 or 60 Ks a week in various forms, like some long, slow runs, some more workout style runs. And I'm cycling probably 150 to 200 Ks a week at the moment. And then on top of that, I'm doing kettlebells, and just probably this last couple of weeks, I've started getting back into like some pad work one-on-one with some people. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to go back to wrestling and jiu-jitsu in smaller groups, or the one-on-one, two-on-one type stuff.
Yeah, look, it's a challenge I think everybody's got.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely Australia-wide at the moment. Now, I didn't realise you actually stayed at Absolute overnight a few nights a week. That shows a tremendous level of commitment.
Yeah.
That I don't think many people in Australia actually probably level up to. So, no, hat off to you, buddy.
Thanks, mate.
I think it just goes to show as well, the struggle for domestic level fighters is real,
Yeah.
I have to admit, there's not a great deal of money at the level that you guys are fighting at. Eternal's definitely competitive in the pay department, but the money just doesn't exist to be able to give you guys the living that I'd want to, if I had
It's gone.
It's happened, Ben. That Western Australia 2 hours behind.
That fucking shitty Perth internet. Fucking hell.
Yes.
He's back.
Back.
Did you lose me?
Yeah, mate.
Well,
we lost you at Eternal's competitive for pay.
Oh yeah, well let's just leave it at that. No, I said
the conditions were better. We're better with conditions and opportunities.
Yeah.
We're definitely competitive for pay, but the pay isn't enough for you guys, and it definitely isn't what you deserve. And we'd love to be in a position, and I think Cam would back me up here, that if we had more money, we'd definitely pay the fighters more money, because it's definitely something that I think is very important. And being so,
I think from our end though, fighters are starting to understand more and more that there's no magic money that just comes from nowhere. Like you think about being a fighter, and you think, they got this venue, they've got this cage or whatever, and I'll get in and do it, and I should get X, Y, or Z of my pay. And people are starting to realize that that's just not the case. You are, just like every business, the amount of money you can bring in is directly correlated to how much money you take out on the back end. So if you're a young fighter and you're not selling any tickets, you're not putting in any effort on that front to promote the show on social media and that sort of thing, there's just not going to be any money in it for you, short term. There's even for me, so I bust my ass when it's a local show to sell tickets, to get as many tables sold as I can, pump it on social media. Even for me, it's then it's not that much compared to, you know, a regular job per se. So I think it's starting, the younger fighters are starting to realize now that you got to do the work on the other end if you want the money. If you don't care about the money and it doesn't bother you, that's fine. Don't worry about selling tickets. Don't do any of that stuff, but just don't expect to be making good money early on there.
Without a doubt, fighters have to see themselves as a business, and I don't even mean to help the promotion, to help themselves as well, you know, because we can only give them, exactly as you say, the money that we can pay is completely relative to the amount of money that fight itself is going to bring in. I can't even remember the last time me and Ben actually paid ourselves from a show, you know, as well. So it's not as if we are putting thousands of dollars in our pockets, you know, everything that we bring in is going to somebody else. It's that pay more than what we're paying at the moment. So if you want more money, you've got to do exactly what you're doing. You know, see yourself as a business. Sell tickets to friends and family. Promote yourself. And not even just for at this level, because all of a sudden then you've got greater exposure. You've got a wider network and your name gets out there. And if you are good, there's a better chance of you moving further forward quicker.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, one thing that's always impressed me about you, other than the way you fight, which is we'll move on to in a minute, is the fact that you understand the business side of things and you're prepared to make an effort to do your side of the promotion, whereas a lot of fighters, I'll be honest, aren't. And I feel like a lot of fighters feel entitled. The show needs me. There's gonna be no fight without me. There's no show without me. Well, truth be told, mate, there's a million of you. Do you know what I mean? There's thousands of you in this country, and people want to fight. And you know, the fact that now as a promotion we are on UFC Fight Pass and we only have 6 slots to fit on that. If you want to be on that portion of the card, you're going to have to do a little bit of your turn and your responsibilities, because we've got plenty of people that do want to be on that. So
yeah.
Prove your worth. Prove your worth being on there, because it's expensive. That portion of the card is expensive for us. We're not, you know, it's costing us a hell of a lot of money to get the production and the broadcasting up to the level that it actually needs to be on that show. We want the fights to be representative of that level. So, you know, we just need people to prove it, and which people like yourself and Diego both did in both terms, in terms of promotion and in terms of performance. 52, it was just a fantastic fight.
Yeah, you could definitely tell that he did his work on the back end, getting people there, because it was pretty quiet when I walked out, and there was a bit of a ruckus when he did.
Yeah. Diego's got a very charismatic personality. He's quite flamboyant. He's a good guy. Diego's a really, really 100%. Nice guy, and he's got a good community around about him, much like yourself. And he's activated all the people. He's got all the people along to the show to support him, which we're very appreciative of. But I'm sure he is as well, as he walks out. And as you say, you can hear a pin drop when you walk out, and then you can hear the raucous roar when he walks out. But I'm sure that does something for you as well when you're standing in that cage. You know.
Yeah, no, I like it. It was different for me. It was my first fight outside of Melbourne, and when it's here, it's very one-sided usually. So it's good.
Did you like it? Did you like being the bad guy? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, per se, I don't know. I was just revved up for that fight. I think that regardless of the crowd, I was going to be pretty zoned in for that fight. I felt like from the fights falling through right up until we had agreed to that contract, it was just like I was so determined just to get a fight. And then when it came through, and it turned out to probably be the best fight I could have in terms of, you know, how big the fight was for the title and who the opponent was. It was just all the stars kind of aligned for me. So I was just going to be there no matter what the crowd was going on. I was on a mission.
I always quite liked being the villain, like, believe it or not. I remember even as a coach, like, I took my brother down from London to Portsmouth, and Portsmouth is like a working class city, and it's pretty rough place, like hostile crowd. And we fought in this nightclub called Time and Envy, and Pat was co-main event, I think, or something along those lines, against one of the local favourites.
Yeah.
When we came out, we got spat at, we got booed. This was back in 2005, 2006, 2007.
Different world. 10 years ago in this sport, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was great. And then Pat stopped the guy. I think he submitted him in the first round. And then the booze came in again, and the bottles were coming in, and all that kind of stuff. And then Pat's like walking around with his hand on his ear, like, oh. And then I've jumped up on the cage, and I'm like giving it to everyone in the crowd, like, oh, fuck you. We were escorted out the back door of the nightclub by the security, and go to the vehicle and don't hang around. Probably suggest you go. But it was
smart. I'm gonna say that's a completely different experience to what I had after the fight at Eternal. I walked out with me belt, and I was limping because my feet were fucked after that fight, and I was walking up to the bar, and they were cash only, but I was standing there with me belt, and I had 3 or 4 people go, here mate, here, I'll get it for you, mate, I'll get it for you. And I think Cam ended up spotting me with 20.
I bumped into you as well. I was like, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think the performance was undeniable. You know, like the fight was great. We'll talk a little bit about the fight now. But for me, like the fight had everything that you'd want it to. It was competitive. Diego, like a knock on Diego in the past would have been that sometimes when the going gets tough, you know, he tends to check out of the fight a little bit, and he definitely didn't do that in this fight. You know,
no, not at all.
Well, last 2 fights, I think in the Tobin fight as well, you know, he showed a new level-headed, mature, more determined approach to it, and he's leveled it up again coming into the fight with Jack. So,
yeah,
I think they're both at the top end of your game for that fight.
Yeah, give us your thoughts on it. From let's go like back a little bit, and let's go to fight week. So,
yep,
you arrived on the Gold Coast on the Wednesday, right?
Wednesday morning. Yeah,
and you weren't staying. Yeah, so accommodation, you stayed?
No, I wanted to stay. I wanted to stay somewhere I'd stayed before on the Gold Coast. And I had my brother and my best mate who also helps me with my nutrition up with me. And they had some training they both needed to do because they both pretty into it as well. My mate's a triathlete, so he needed to be able to get work done while we were there as well. So we stayed in Surfers. You boys picked me up from the airport. It was a really good week because I was already pretty close to weight. Like I only had probably when I got there on the Wednesday, I think I said to you, Cam, I probably only had like 3 kilos to go to make weight, and I hadn't started sweating or anything yet. So it was a cruisy week in that sense. And we just enjoyed it. The weather was fucking shit, which didn't help. We were coming from Melbourne up to the Gold Coast expecting it to be nice, and it was fucking rainy and windy and shit, but what do you do? So we just chilled out at the hotel, did the usual fight week things, sit there and try not to think about fighting the entire time. But then, you know, at night we were watching some tape on Diego and, you know, trying to just re-go over the game plan over and over and over. Then after that, we'd go hit some pads, get a bit of a sweat on, and on the weigh-in day, I love the morning weigh-ins. The morning weigh-ins, I'd never done that before. In Melbourne, we're just the nighttime weigh-ins, and with the traffic, often you get there and they say 6 o'clock weigh-ins, and by the time the commissioner gets there and gets the scale set up at 7:30, you've been sitting there waiting, dehydrated. So the morning weigh-ins were awesome. As you could tell, Cam, I was there 40 minutes early, saying to Cam, "Oh, we good to go, Cam?" And he's got to wait till 10.
Yeah, there was a few of you doing that.
Yeah, but it was good. The whole experience was good, to be honest. And then we went to the weigh-in. You know, me and Diego had a really good face-off. I think he said after we sort of had the face-off, and he said to me, "Hey, keep that same energy tomorrow night." And I said, "Oh, we'll see tomorrow night." And then we walk out, and I was intent on keeping that same energy. So as soon as he started walking out, it was just eye contact the whole way. He sort of said goodbye to his team and stuff there. I'd had a few words to his teammate, Justin, online because he was barking up when he didn't want to fight me. But he squashed that after the fight, but that doesn't matter. So he walked up.
We're big fans of the online banter. You know, we like people making fights.
Yeah, no. It happens enough these days. Like I feel.
It was nothing. It was nothing. You know, malicious towards each other or rude or anything like that. It was just like, you know, I don't think you should be arcing up, cheering for someone online if you've turned down a fight with them. So, or something like that. But then he walked up into the cage. We didn't break eye contact the whole time. I was good to go. And then that first round came out, and we were both a bit cagey, and it was just sort of both landing leg kicks and that sort of stuff. But I hit him with when he jabs, we noticed that he turns his foot in. So we were waiting for the jab. I was going to pull on it and then just chop at that calf. And I hit it real hard and I broke his leg. That first real solid calf kick I hit him with. It broke his tibia or fibia, one of those two. Which is another credit to Diego that he went 4 rounds on that, because it was you could tell it was sore. And then I think you boys were cage side. You probably would have seen. Got up in between round 1 and 2, and I got off the stool with about 15 seconds left, and my coach was trying to calm me down, and I was just yelling at him. I was just saying, "Hey, I'm keeping that same energy, Diego. Hey, are you liking that energy now? I'm here." And he didn't say much back to me, so I kind of just tried to keep that energy the whole same night, like he asked me to, and it worked out well.
No, it was good stuff. It was good stuff. As you say, it was a credit to Diego going round 4 rounds with that broken leg. But it shows good game planning from you and the team, noticing the small intricacies of the movement in the front foot, and then and again game planning to do something which was obviously effective as well.
Yeah, one of the things about that fight that I think a lot of people who aren't deep in the game wouldn't notice, but if you look back on both mine and Diego's fights, we both switch stances really often. Like we both are very fluid in being southpaw to orthodox. So a lot of times you would have seen me and Diego standing there and we were feinting and sort of moving in and out and stuff. And we were both switching stances the whole time. So all of our looks were constantly changing. So there was really high level sequences going on between us that might have looked pretty rudimentary if you weren't watching the feet and seeing what was happening. Because obviously the guys who fight know that your entry to someone who's standing southpaw is different if you're southpaw or if you're standing orthodox. So I would switch up and I'd stand southpaw to match him for a certain entry, and then he'd go back to orthodox, so that wouldn't work, and vice versa. So it was a high level contest on the feet and on the ground as well as it ended up. But
a bit of chest there between the two of you.
I think
100%.
He also suffered in the second round. Maybe there's a head kick and the jaw.
There's that broken jaw. So that was one thing that we were setting up as well. Was that when he went into southpaw, I wanted to attack with my right leg, right to right. So before I would match him in southpaw sometimes, so just so I wasn't susceptible to that left hand really easily. But before I matched him in southpaw, what we were doing was I was going right hand to right foot, just trying to get him to lean off into that kick. It busted for it. And then he swapped back to orthodox and I hit him with a low kick, and I knew that it was hurting. And then he backed up to the fence and there was another little exchange. And I threw the kick like I was going to come down the middle because we were both teeping a lot. I threw it like it was going to come down the middle, but just sort of flicked it up over the shoulder at the last minute. And it worked out really well that he dropped his hands and leaned into the kick a little bit. And I just ended up slapping him on the jaw with my forefoot, the top of my foot, and that broke his jaw too. So, which ended up being the reason that he tapped out. I was under the chin with my choke in that sort of like half back mount, quarter mount type thing. And he was holding my left hand and I just started squeezing with my right hand, but I was already under the neck. So I think he knew at that point that if he let go, it was just going to be palm to palm, and that would have probably put him in a lot of pain with the broken jaw.
The thing that I noticed at that point was the amount of blood coming out of his mouth at that point.
Yeah.
Squeezing. You could tell there was some serious damage in the mouth. The way
I've been following him on social media and he looks like he's healed up really well. He's back moving around and stuff, so that's good. You don't ever want to see someone injured and out for a long time doing something they love.
Yeah, no, I noticed on Instagram the other day he's in good spirits and dancing about like Carlton from The Fresh Prince and the Robot.
Yeah, I did say that too.
That was pretty good.
So you actually made history that day as well. You were the first fighter to ever go into the championship rounds on Eternal. So absolutely,
yeah, that was good.
It's an accolade that can never be taken away from you, and will go down in our history book. So
yeah, no, I'm wrapped with that. That was awesome. It was good for me. It was the first time I've ever gone championship rounds as well. It's good to see that the hard work's paid off over the course of trying to improve cardio, because obviously you look back on your fights and you see where you went wrong. And a couple of times I've sort of blown the gas out a little bit early. A couple of times I've not been able to maintain a pace that I would like. And I've just put a lot of time and effort into fixing that. So it was good to see that over 4 rounds I could maintain the pace and even up the pressure as the fight went on.
Yeah, no, it was a great fight. The pace was fantastic as well. In fact, all the pro fights on that card, the pace that they went off at was
they were just bangers, weren't they?
yeah.
The whole card. Even I was out. I try not to watch like too close to my fight, but because it was such a big card and a deep card, I could get out and watch a couple of my teammates, and I was pumped because they were just such good fights, so well matched, start to finish.
I really enjoyed talking about your teammates. I really enjoyed the Louis Tran fight.
Louis the G.
Really good.
It was really lucky. So Louis, he broke his orbital in that fight. So he had to go to the hospital and he couldn't fly home with us. And I was just lucky. One of my students who I coach, he's a 17-year-old kid, he bought himself a ute. He bought himself a Ford Ranger on the Gold Coast. So he flew up to the Gold Coast to pick up the Ford Ranger and watch my fight. And then he was going to drive it back down with his buddy. So Louis had to jump in the Ford Ranger with them and drive back down to Melbourne. So it worked out pretty well that we had a couple of people come up to watch and end up buying a car, because otherwise he would have been stuck on the Greyhound home, which would have been a fucking dreadful drive.
It wouldn't have been the first time that Simon would have had to forfeited his flight and put the car and drive home. I remember he had to do it with Tina Trin after her fight up at Mansfield Tavern on, can't remember if it was a rain or an Eternal. I think it was an Eternal. And she'd have broken orbital as well, and he had to drive home with her.
Gotcha.
So Jack, tell me about how you go from a little bad spell in end of 2017, start of 2018, a couple of defeats there after a flawless start to your career, and then 2 years later you're the champ. Like, what's the mindset like, and how's the approach, and what's changed, and what's happened to make this journey sort of go 360 and get back on the right track after that?
In terms of like real things like training and that sort of stuff, I obviously moved full-time my training to Absolute, which was a huge thing. And the way it worked out, it was a Thailand scholarship originally, and then a few things happened and I ended up sort of transitioning back to the Melbourne gym, and I was able to get work and that sort of thing. But it was mostly moving to Absolute, committing more to my striking coach, Andy, and being really, really solid and building our relationship. And then just the mindset of it, it's a long game. Like, you make your mistakes now so you don't have to make them later. The Jesse loss, I thought I won the first round pretty clearly. The whole game plan was don't take him down, defend the takedown. I'm a bit more athletic than Jesse, I feel, so I felt like it was going to be hard work for him to get me to the ground. And then you see in that fight, I get to his back, tie my hands up on his hips and just go, whoop, over we go, and take him to the ground. And then obviously Jesse being a veteran and me being relatively inexperienced at that point, I only started training sort of 2-3 months before my first pro fight. So I'm still a baby in terms of knowledge and ring experience and that sort of thing. So Jesse just did what he does, drew me in, ate a couple of punches, grabbed that arm and ran away with it. So credit to him. And then the second fight, that one was just like, it was just a blip in my opinion. Like, I just went in there, messed up the fight, messed up the start, got over carried away, probably got a bit affected by what was going on outside the ring in terms of like, I need him in the balls really bad. Like, it was one of the worst things I've done in a fight. Like, obviously accidental, but I started to think like, oh shit, I've need him in the balls. This is the worst. And it took him a really long time to recover. It was probably, 6-7 minutes before he got back up and we continued the fight. And I completely let my mind go to not being present. I was starting to think, oh, what if the fight gets cancelled now? What if this, what if that? And then when the fight back started, I sort of, struggled to get back in there. So that was just a lesson. It was a good lesson in staying present, being where you are, not letting anything that's going on affect the job you have to do. So both losses for me weren't, they were hard to take, like both times. Obviously out the back, you see what fighters are like when they lose a fight, especially ones who see it as a career and what they really want to do. I was devastated, but I was able to move on from both of them fairly quickly in terms of getting straight back in the gym and just doing what I have to do.
Did you know much about Kim before you fought him, or was it a bit of
No, that fight, so I was supposed to fight someone else. I can't remember exactly who it was. and they pulled out about 10 days before, and I didn't get told until about a week before the fight, and they said, "Oh, we've got these Korean boys coming in. We'll bring one in for you." And all I got told that he was 2-2, and I was like, "Okay, cool, 2-2." And I took him, and it was a winnable fight. I don't think the matchup was bad or anything. I just knew nothing about him, and he ended up being a Korean jiu-jitsu champion, at purple belt and that sort of thing. So he was pretty handy, and I wish I had known more, and I probably, in hindsight, would do a bit more research when we could. But I don't know if you've ever tried to research a Korean, but there's like 50 of them with the same name, or one letter different in English. It's really hard to do any research on those lower level Koreans.
Wasn't that the night that the Koreans came over and took some names in Melbourne?
Those Koreans came. I think, Simon copped a loss, which he crossed his ankles over in the back mount. So good on you, Simon.
He gave that fight away.
Yeah, that was funny. And then, I think Darwin was fighting a Korean, and he was getting beaten. I think I was out the back still at this stage, I think. But I think he was getting beaten, and he just clocked him with the uppercut that dropped in. And I think there was maybe two others.
Yeah, they all won.
And then Jimmy had just a 5-round war with that Korean Rhino.
Yeah.
And that was a crazy fight. But yeah, that was a big night for the Koreans in Melbourne that night.
And obviously for me, I know you. You're a consummate professional, so having to have an opponent on 10 days' notice when you obviously geared your training camp up for someone else, because I can only imagine that your training camps are very specific to
super specific.
Knowing you and Simon, I would imagine that the work and the homework that goes into an opponent.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't training with Simon yet at that point. That was my last. That was my last fight before I transitioned over to Absolute.
But just I think I know how your mind works. That would have thrown you for a loop. I could imagine to then fight some unknown dude that you just got to go and hope for the best. So.
Yeah, but both of them, I'm not angry or bitter about either of those losses. I think they both taught me a different lesson that I've learned. And if you look at my last 3 fights, I think you can probably pick something that has improved drastically as a result of having lost those 2 fights. So I'm happy with the path I'm on, and going to keep going till the wheels fall off.
I think sometimes, especially obviously Jack Della lost his first pro fights, and it got the monkey off his back straight away, because obviously he had a lot of hype, and people were saying, "Oh, this kid's good," and blah blah. Once that goes, it's almost like a bit of pressure off, because you're not. Yeah. It's not only do you have to win a fight, but you have to defend your undefeated tag, right?
Yeah.
Which is more pressure. So I think once you get that, everyone in MMA loses. Right? There's very few people. Probably John Jones is the only person who hasn't lost a fight in MMA.
Could be.
John and Khabib, that's it.
And Khabib, yeah. There's very few people out there in MMA that don't lose. The variables and the 4-ounce gloves just make it a lottery every time you step in there. Anyone's one shot away from getting knocked out. So it almost takes a bit of pressure off. That you get a couple of losses, and you're like, right, I can just get my teeth into. Yeah,
definitely. And I think your deficiencies as a fighter in the gym are often very different to your deficiencies as a fighter in the cage. And you learn where, taking a couple of losses early on, let's say I was a little bit deeper into the career and I was starting to make my run for the UFC, and you took a double loss. That's a little bit different than early on in your career when you can take it and it doesn't necessarily steal a lot of momentum from you. Because once you get to the top 4 or 5 guys, and you're all trying to get the same UFC spot, you lose to one of those guys, they're not going to give you another shot, A, because they've got the number on you, and B, you just don't have as much time to get it back. But taking it early, it's a little bit better for you, which is why amateur careers are so good as well. And the amateur shows that are available to the young guys now, where you can sort of do the pro-am on Eternal, and it's essentially a pro fight that doesn't go on your record. The only difference is it's a lesser skilled opponent, one who's more, in line with where you're at.
It's basically giving your time to serve an apprenticeship. There's slightly less time in the rounds, and there's a couple of the weapons taken away in the form of elbows and up kicks, etc.
Yeah.
But it gives you time to apply your apprenticeship and learn your lessons before making the move to go pro. And not only learning your lessons, getting your preparation down pat. I mean, even just how long you're going to warm up for out the back, how your weight cut's going to go. All these little things you can get to perfect at amateur level before going pro, where, as you say, it counts so much more.
Yeah. All right. So obviously, talk to us a little bit about. It's been a massive end of the year for Metamorphica. It won't be a gym that a huge amount of people have heard of just because of where it is geographically. But if you look at the boys like yourself and Ricky coming out of there this year, taking titles, just talk to us a little bit about Metamorphica and Ricky, Coach Ricky, as opposed to fight. It is Ricky. I'm right, aren't I? What's your coach? The coach down there?
Heath is our coach.
Heath
is the head coach down there, and Ricky's training there, and I'm training there. That's both where we started our MMA journey. Yeah, but no, it's awesome. I love Metamorphica. The thing about Metamorphica is that it is an awesome gym. Great, like probably unparalleled support in terms of support for you as a person and a fighter. Heath and Callie, who run the gym, are incredible people, and you'll get the same support there if you're a white belt who's just started a week ago, or if you're like me and Ricky, eternal champions who are been doing it for a long time. So it's a great gym. The problem for me why I had to move to Absolute was that I just didn't have the training partners on a regular basis that I need to, because it's a smaller gym and it's not a fight team necessarily. I've probably got like one or two guys there my weight. Jacob Prosser, who's fought on Eternal, but we're at very, very different parts of our career and very, very different skill levels. So it's not really useful training there. A lot of the time for me, I still get training in with Heath, the coach. He's a black belt. He's brilliant with it. But moving to Absolute was about that. Ricky, the thing about Ricky is Heath's bigger, so they get a lot of work in together. And Ricky's got Jimmy Crute, Ben Sassoli, Sam Hayward, Jake Matthews, those boys that he trains with down at Dad's Army. We've got a really good sort of collaborative thing going on there where those boys all get together and do their work. And Daniel Kelly is doing a great job at leading that and helping all those boys get to where they want to be.
Yeah, how good was Ricky's weekend when he won and then got to see him the next day?
That's another one where, Ricky had said to me, hey, can we get a fight? I'd like to fight on that New Zealand card. And I said, all right, I'll ask. And it was already full with all the boys, obviously. And then you messaged me back and one of them had pulled out. And I walked into the gym and I said to Ricky, I think, was it probably 2 or 3 weeks before that? Or maybe.
It
wasn't long out. I said, hey, you want to go to New Zealand? But I said, hey, it looks like I'm going to fight the week after you. At this point, I won't be able to come. And I've done a lot of Ricky's cornering. And he said, yeah, fuck it, let's go. And he was balls deep from the start. So he took off over there with Heath. And there was a few boys who were there for the UFC anyway, who he got to corner as well. So it worked out. And he just went to town. He fought. Those guys were all so tough. Who did he have in the first? Jack Tuave, wasn't it?
Yeah, Tuave in the first, yeah.
Like being dropping people.
Henry Burns in the final, and for the fight, both fights to go the distance.
Yeah.
I don't think we'd ever had a heavyweight fight in Eternal go the distance before.
Yep.
And I think that night they all went the distance, Ben. Is that? Yeah, every single one of them went the distance.
Crazy, isn't it? Yeah, but even like for Ricky there, if you look back on that fight, especially in the third round of the Henry Burns fight, it was clearly 1-1 going into the third, and it was like if Henry gets on top, he's probably going to win. Because he had that good jiu-jitsu and he was looking for the takedown the whole time. And there was probably 4 or 5 opportunities in the round where Henry got right to the edge of a takedown where Ricky's hips would touch the mat, and I was sort of sitting there going, oh, fuck, it's done. He's just going to sit on top here. And every time Ricky just dug a little bit deeper, and managed to get a sweep or stand up again. Or so credit to Henry that he went hard right to the end of 15 minutes, which, even at the highest level of the sport, you don't see with the heavyweights. But Ricky, to do it for 6 rounds as a heavyweight over 2 fights, getting warmed up, cooled down, warmed up again, and then have that kind of mental fortitude to make sure you win the fight in the third round was awesome to watch, and it was really good for me to see one of my teammates and someone who I've known since we were kids do that.
Yeah, I think both Henry and Ricky, can take a lot from that going the 6 rounds. I remember being out back between the first and second fight for Ricky, and he was sitting quite heavily strapped up, trying to save an injury to his eye that was obviously about to flare up.
Yeah.
He was trying to tie us down, and bites in the shins as well. But no, both boys tough as hell.
Yeah, 100%. No, it was awesome. So it's good that Ricky and I are both still at Metamorphic in different capacities. So I'm there running the MMA for the younger guys and for the amateur guys. So I'm really lucky to be able to do that and stay involved down there.
And with Ricky being heavyweight, he's at that strange weight as well, where he's walking into the cage at 108, 109 kilograms. He's not making any cuts. He must be very close to making light heavy. Maybe not at this level, but maybe if he goes any further, it'd be a weight that he'd be looking to drop.
Yeah, he's probably... Look, the thing about Ricky, he probably has to go one way or the other. But the other thing about Ricky, I think until he won this belt, Ricky never ever saw this as a career option for himself. He loves what he does. He loves kicking about, and he just likes to fight. So the idea of either going on an intense program to put weight on and put on a bit of bulk and go up, or go the other way and get himself down to maybe 102, 101, where that cut down to light heavyweight is reasonable. Either of those things just didn't really appeal to him. But now he's at the stage where he's holding himself up there with the best heavyweights in the country day in, day out, and light heavyweights. And he's such a useful partner and gets his licks in as well against those guys. He's starting to see that, this is a real option for him going forward if he wants to do it. And one of the things, like you said, Cam, is he's going to have to make that call and go, I've got to get a bit lighter and go down, or I've got to get a bit heavier and sort of bulk out here.
And he's got one of these strange body types with his height and the length of his limbs.
Yeah.
He can make either of them.
Yeah.
It would be very effective at either. Can you imagine him being that size and being 120 kilos, or being that size and being 93 kilos?
Yeah. And Ricky, people see Ricky and they don't realise how young he is. Like, he's still only 26 or something like that. Like, he's young for his body. You look at him and you think he's much older than he is, and he's only sort of just coming into that age where you see it with basketballers and footballers a lot, where the taller, longer guys get that coordination catch up a little bit later because they're so big, and he's just starting to get that in the last couple of years, where he's really sort of owning his body and being able to throw it around the way he wants to.
But he also has an amazing chin, which is
he's a beast.
Because he took clean shots off Jack Tuava and didn't even take a backward step. That chin with that gas tank at heavyweight, with maybe if he could put 5 kilos of muscle on.
Yeah.
That chin with that gas tank, he's going to be a nightmare for any heavyweight.
100%. The gas tank and the mentality in the late in the fight to be able to be like, no, I'm not giving an inch here. Like, go, is pretty rare. So. And
the skills, like some of the jiu-jitsu he pulled off in that last round to not get taken down. It wasn't just brute force. There was a lot of
And again, that's he has the benefit of working really closely with Heath, who's a black belt, and I'm sure they worked on stuff that was really specific to those boys and sweeps and getting up off your back, which was awesome for him.
Yeah, it was his sweeps that impressed me, especially late in the fight. A couple of these sweeps and transitions were fantastic.
For sure.
I've got to say a credit to all of you guys over there, the Metamorphic team. It's always so easy to deal with, always polite, always bending over backwards to help out wherever you can. So thank you, and please pass that on to Heath and Ricky as well.
Definitely will.
Job, we deal with a lot of people who aren't easy to deal with. So to find
I deal with Ben.
Hey?
I mean, I've got to deal with Ben.
So dealing with guys that make our life easier, and don't really, you'd be surprised how many demands and things that we're expected to do sometimes. I really
spend enough time around fighters, you understand. I get you.
So I really appreciate the fact that even Heath, to the point that he was helping me clean up after the weigh-ins. You know,
he's an incredible dude, incredible guy. He's I'm very lucky to have him as part of my life, and I think everyone else at Metamorphic would agree with that.
Yeah, well, we definitely look forward to working closely with you guys in the future on that.
Yeah.
We're not going to take up too much more of your time, but we do have some questions for you.
I got fuck all on, Ben.
Yeah, that is very true, mate. That is very true. Right, so Cam is going to start us off. Have you got the questions up, Cam?
Start us off. I hate the first question.
I'll start us off. So all we're going to do
is the pause, remember?
We're going to fire some questions at you.
Yep.
And then you've just got to answer with one word. All right?
Yep.
So, Cam, what's this pause you're talking about?
Just so as we can edit it properly for Instagram. We'll put the questions up on Instagram every week as well, and as I lead into the show. The shows are going to go up every Sunday from now on, Jack. So
sick.
You'll see yourself on the little screen next Sunday.
All right, so I've got to pause now before I ask these questions.
Pause.
Give me the thumbs up when I can go.
Let's go.
This is like eternal through and through, like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
All right, question 1. AFL or rugby?
Rugby union or rugby league?
Rugby or AFL?
Rugby.
Tits or ass?
Tits.
Blonde or brunette?
Brunette.
KO or submission?
KO.
Steak or salad?
Steak.
Dog or cat?
Dog.
Restaurant, pub or club?
Restaurant.
5-round war, 5-second KO.
5-second KO every day of the week.
I thought I was writing that question. I was like, I think I know the answer to this one.
Yeah.
Cardio or weights?
Cardio.
Beer or wine?
Beer.
Holden or Ford?
Ford.
Gatche or Ferguson?
Gagey.
Ooh. The last one. Coronavirus or crock of shit?
Crock of shit.
Well, I think I concur on most of your
most of the answers. I'm not against the 5-round war. You got to have them. But if I'm taking 9 out of 10, it'll be 9 out of 10 of the 5-second KOs, please.
Your career will be much longer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's what we want. Okay. So thanks for your time. Is there anyone you want to thank? Anyone you want to shout out? Any sponsors or anyone?
Yeah, a few. Like obviously Absolute and Metamorphica, the Ring Gym, Andy, my striking coach. For
Andy Colgrave, is that?
Andy Colgrave is a beast. Brilliant mind and a very good friend of mine. So him. Brawler Bar, my sponsors. If you're struggling to get some soap, go online to Brawler Bar. And that's about it at the moment. Aren't we going to talk business though? Who are we fighting next?
Who do you want to fight next?
Well, if we want to make money, you do me versus Medina 2 at the Pavilion in Melbourne. You'll get half of the western suburbs in there if you put that fight on.
We've got to look at legitimacy. People have got to be coming off of wins on Eternal.
Mate, there's been far less legitimate people fighting for championships in far bigger promotions than this. He's fought everyone of everyone. And this is it, like...
He's coming off a win. He's coming off a win in Eternal against Nemesis. There you go.
You go...
Don't get carried away. We might have already spoke about that fight earlier on today.
I'm talking business. That's the moneymaker, that fight.
Okay, so put business aside and put the fact that you want to get your loss back. Anyone else in the featherweight division that you've got your eye on that you'd actually like to have a scrap?
There's heaps of people who are good. You know, I was going to go up against one of the Jones brothers, Luke, until coronavirus came through and took that away. That was going to be on a different promotion, but that's sort of gone toward it now. You know, anyone sort of that top 10 ranking, I'm good for. there's heaps of people there. If Tobin gets a win and gets himself back there, that's a good name, a good scalp I'd like to get. And I think it's a good fight. And if he puts the work in to get back in the win column, then
we do have 2 or 3 people we've spoke about.
Who's that?
And one of them might have been mentioned by you a couple of minutes ago, so it'll be good.
Who?
Well, we did talk a little bit about Jesse Medina earlier today, actually, Cam and I. So
yeah, fucking do it. Put him on. Jesse's a good guy. He taught me a very valuable lesson early on, but it's a different game now, and I'd like to run that one back. I'm interested. The Sangwon Kim fight. If he's the best featherweight in Korea and we meet in the UFC or another promotion down the track, then we'll deal with that. But I'm interested in being the best Australian featherweight, and I want to get that one back.
Jesse's got all our respect as well. It's definitely a fight that we would
Everyone,
like.
You talk to anyone who knows anything about fighting in Australia, they'll tell you that Jesse's tough, he's skilled, and he's a veteran for a reason.
Yeah, he's got some really good wins on camera as well.
Yeah,
dangerous.
One in Adelaide against Nico was a really good win as well.
He can get his ass whooped for 2 3/4 rounds and still beat you. He's dangerous.
He's dangerous from minute 1 to the end of the fight.
Yeah, without a doubt. And that's what happened in Adelaide against Flessis. He was, there's no secret that Flessis would have been well ahead in the scorecards up until Jesse finished.
Yep.
All right, there we go. So
we're going to try and sign this fight before next week so as that we can release this section of the podcast as well.
Yeah, it's just it's going to be down on.
Jesse, are you there, mate?
I'll ring him and ask him. He'll fucking answer me call.
It's going to be a case of when we can have crowds back in rooms again.
Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't want to put that fight on. You wouldn't want to put that fight on anywhere but Melbourne, and you wouldn't want to do it if you couldn't have a crowd there because I know
we've got a few dates booked round about the country that we think are realistic for us to get back in action. So.
Yep.
We get an idea when we'll be able to do it.
Yeah, sweet. Cool.
I think no Australian promotion is in a position to put fights on behind closed doors. I would say. I'm speculating, but
we actually had a conversation about it a few weeks ago, about 4 or 5 weeks ago. We had a conversation about looking to do it, a serious conversation, and yeah, there's just no way that it can be done. Not with a pro card anyway.
Yeah.
Do it that way.
Yeah. The only hard part about it is that Victoria will be the last state to open up the regulations and that sort of thing. Even now, we're still the strictest out of all the states on our lockdown laws.
That's not because you're backward. That's just because it's strict.
Yeah, just because it's strict.
All right, Jack. Thanks a lot for your time, mate.
Guys, thanks for having me. It was good to talk to you.
Thanks, Jack. Good to see you, buddy.
All right, catch you
soon.